What is going on, everybody? We're back again. Rios and Papi. We don't need nobody else. You know what's up. You already know the plan. How's it going, Rios?
Man, after the game yesterday, I think I lost some years of my life.
So this past weekend we had Lions at Texans, right? The Lions, coming off an insane winning streak, playing like awesome football. We talked about it last show. I told you and Carlos, I'm like, I think that right now they're the best team in the league. I don't care what the Kansas City Chiefs are like 9-0 or whatever. Like the Lions are, for me, the best football team in the league right now.
They can easily drop 50 on any team and get like 10 sacks. Like
and even
a football team.
And even when they play bad, which I feel like they did yesterday, they still find some way to come up with a win away from home, which is crazy. And
in the Texans, they basically snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Like it was right.
It was definitely a tale of two halves, correct? Definitely a tale of two halves. Like I told the guys on our last show, on the prediction show, I told you guys, I don't see us scoring a lot of points. I think the game's gonna get away from us like right after the first half. If we go into this halftime with a competitive game, I'll be proud of that. I will take that as a Texans fan. The way that we've been playing lately, the way the issues with the O-line, issues with injuries, especially in the wide receiver core. So going into this game, my expectations were on the floor. Now, before we started the show, you said, you saw a lot of negatives out there, which I can agree with. But we should also, point out some of the positives from the Texans. Previous to the game, they were making some changes on the O-line, which is what we've been asking for the past few weeks. Well, can you at least tell me what you thought of the offensive line this time around?
So it's one of those things where they fix one thing and break something else. As of late, since Joe Mixon returned, they've been pretty decent as far as run blocking. I think that's more so the ability of Joe Mixon to just, break tackles and just essentially impose his will on the other team's defenses. Mm-hmm. So this game, they switched it up. So they moved. They were having issues with the communication, so they moved Patterson back to center where he was last year. He did a fairly decent job last season. No complaints about him in this game. They moved Juice Scruggs to guard. He's not the best at the guard position. I think he's a bit better at center than guard, but I mean Patterson is the better center, and there was no communication just for the most part, so move made sense. He was an improvement over Kenyon Green, but I mean that bar is
so far
underground.
It's like 20 feet underground at the moment.
It's underground next to like a fiber optic cable. It's just down in the earth, man.
Yeah.
But so they did a fairly decent job in pass protection, like for the most part.
It wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect. CJ still had to get the ball out pretty damn fast most of the time.
But unfortunately, the run blocking suffered tremendously. 25 carries for 49 yards.
It's like they took a huge step back. And I don't know how much that is on the Texans O-line rather than the Lions defense, because I feel like they held the run pretty well. Opposed to that, we couldn't stop the run at all. Gibbs was having his way with us. Like every time they need a big conversion, it's not like they were throwing the ball out there, which they still could do and did with the tight end. But Jahmyr Gibbs was just like running amok out there. It made them look like children out there.
Made it look like they were in quicksand. No, but I think they figured out the way to kind of slow the Lions down. And they mentioned it a couple times on the broadcast. If you make Jared Goff into a pocket passer, like you have him, not doing rollouts and play action, not relying on the run game, but have him drop back and pass, you can force him into some errors, especially with that pressure.
I mean, he threw 5 interceptions, wasn't it?
5 picks. We'll get to that in a second. But he was getting there. They weren't getting sacks, but they were, getting pressure on him. I think the pressure rate was around 60%. Like they were getting there was just 4. They didn't have to do a whole lot of blitzing. They were getting there with their front 4. Didn't lead to sacks, but it led to a lot of incompletions. And again, some of those bad throws ended up becoming interceptions.
I mean, to throw for 5 interceptions and still get away with the win. That's one of the reasons why I'm telling you guys, like the Lions would be my lock-in for Super Bowl contenders this year.
I mean, that hasn't been accomplished since the 50s. We're talking about 70 years ago.
You were probably there, huh?
Yeah, I
So,
was
bro,
at the,
you were at the game. But it was. I mean, it was a bit of a bittersweet, right? Obviously, the loss hurts, especially the way that it came from, because Kaimi Fairbairn missed that the missed a couple of field goals, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, he just missed the one.
He just missed the one. Um, and the Lions on the other side of the field, barely made two kicks to basically take the lead. The clock management was a problem. We still look very stagnant in the offense. Mechie had a good game. I would probably say, like, he was getting most of the receptions out there. Tank Dell was okay. Schultz was okay, but nobody really stole the game, right? Nobody really like fully stepped up. Not like a Diggs, not like a Nico. Um, but we did do a better job of moving the ball in the passing, more so than we have in the past few games. Obviously, the O line held it together a little bit better, and CJ was a little bit better under pressure. But we we just, after the second half, we just couldn't score,
I mean,
and that was the biggest problem.
That's going to be my biggest area of concern right now. So let me pull up the numbers for the last since the season started as far as second half scoring.
Okay, go for it.
So week 1 against the Colts, second half points 17. Not ideal, but not terrible either.
Yeah.
Week 2 against the Chicago Bears, 3 points.
Yep. That was a bad game. That was a bad game. I remember.
Terrible. Week 3 against the Vikings, 7 points. I mean, it was just an overall terrible game, but to score 7 points, you couldn't even get garbage time points. That's how bad it was.
What did we end up scoring that whole game, by the way? 10?
I think it was less than 20. I remember that much. It was
it was definitely less than 20, yeah.
So the next game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 7 points in the second half. The next week against the Buffalo Bills, 6 points. Yep. All they could muster was 2 field goals. That's the game they lost Nico, but still, I mean, he had been playing that entire time and it didn't make a difference in the second half. The following week against the Patriots is the one time they actually put up points in the second half. They put up 27, but it
was the Patriots.
It's one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
The following week against the Packers, 3 points in the second half. And they lost that game by 3 points.
By 3 points, yeah.
The week after against the Colts, 6 points. They just scored 2 field goals in the second half. It was a win, but we're noticing a recurring pattern here. The following week against the Jets, 6 points in the second half.
Unacceptable, man. Like, honestly.
And then the Lions, 0. Straight goose egg in the second half. Not a solitary point.
And that was their biggest issue, because we keep seeing teams making adjustments against this Texans offense. Because pretty much every first half, bear the one against the Bears and the Vikings, where we just didn't feel like scoring. It looked like, I mean, the Vikings, I'll give you their defense was crazy, but the Bears, like, we definitely should have scored more points in that first half. But it looks like in the second half, every single team makes some kind of adjustment to either, try to contain the Texans' run, which has been their biggest weapon ever since all the wide receivers went out, and just continue to put pressure on CJ and that old line, who more often than not look like they don't know what they're doing out there. No. And on the other hand, the Texans don't seem to make any adjustments whatsoever. They basically let the Lions come back in the second half. CJ threw a pick that, I mean, like, he took blame for that. It was kind of on him, to be honest. Like, he didn't have a lot of pressure on that play. It didn't seem to.
That was wild, because Dan Campbell was saying they need to get some turnovers, and literally, like,
immediately,
something bad's going to happen on this play, and sure enough.
And that's kind of when the game turned its head, right? Like, it's. I feel like the Texans lost out, like, all momentum, and then the Lions just kept going. And like I said, every time the Lions needed a big conversion, it was either Sam Laporta making a catch for like 30 yards, or it was Jahmyr Gibbs just running down the sideline and not getting tackled by anybody. He looked like a speed demon out there. And
iconic.
And then the Texans had no answer to that. And that's just, another like you said, it's not a reoccurring thing. Like on the second half, like yeah, we were winning. What was it, 20 to like 7?
23 to 7.
23 to 7.
16-point lead at the half.
And after that, like if you convert on a couple of drives in the second half, like just a few field goals, you start to put more pressure on them. You start making Goff making more mistakes. He threw 5 picks, brother. The defense, like, there's honestly nothing that the defense could do as far as the secondary at that point. The secondary played a really, really decent game. Petrie, I think, had a very solid game. Of course,
yeah.
he started the game with that deflection or whatever. But it's just this offense, man.
Well, no. So a few days ago, they were interviewing Bobby, and he admitted himself that he doesn't make adjustments. And I'm like, well, obviously, we've seen that for the last 9 weeks until Sunday. Like, we've seen it every week. There's been 0 adjustments in the second half, and it's reflecting in the scoreboard. It's reflecting in the yards gained in the second half. Look how many one-score games they've lost this season. The only blowout was the Vikings game. Other than that, every one has been a one-score game almost that they've lost. Like, this team should be, 9-1, honestly, but they're not.
Honestly, the Texans could have been the Packers, and they could have been the Lions, and
the Jets.
The Jets, and because the Jets coming into a game were horrible.
As we saw yesterday, they got spanked by the Cardinals. It wasn't even a contest. That game was over in the first quarter. It was just non-competitive.
And that's the thing. A lot of teams, when they get the lead, winning teams know how to not take their foot off the gas and put the game away.
And I mean, there's blame to go all around. The biggest culprit, honestly, is the coaching. Just some of the play calls. So let me give a little breakdown of some of the play calls. So after that interception in the end zone by CJ, this is the sequence of events for the next 6 plays. We had a run, another run, another running play, punt, another running play, 1 pass attempt that ended up being a sack, and a run. 6 plays, 6 yards. And in that sequence, the Lions got back into the game.
Dude, I could average 6 yards. I mean,
that was a yard per play for 6 plays.
Yeah, I could average 1 yard per play.
It's like you have a young quarterback, and he threw an interception in the end zone. Okay, cool, but don't take the ball out of his hands, because you still are up by 2 scores. That's not the time to take your foot off the gas and be conservative. But we've seen it week after week after week with Slowick. He just gets ultra conservative in the second half, and it's cost the team. Honestly, almost all the losses with the Vikings.
And the thing is, like, I get the running offense because Joe Mixon has been so good, but when the Lions are creeping up like that, when it's not a 2-3 possession game anymore, when it's down to a 1 possession game, I just keep running the ball, praying for Mixon to make a play, when in the last 6 plays he's gone 6 yards. What are you doing?
It's like he is just trying to I've said it on previous episodes. His play calling style reminds me a lot of Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins. They don't make adjustments to the personnel that they have. They just try to basically put a square peg into a circle, and it's not, like the running game yesterday was not working, and the Lions made adjustments. One of the adjustments they made was they let the pass rushers get through because that set up the screen passes, and that's how Jahmyr Gibbs was getting all those yards after.
Yeah, no, I mean their blocking was insane from the Lions. Like everybody out there on the field was blocking their hearts out, like 1,000%.
And with our offensive line, it's the complete opposite. Honestly, there was a couple instances where Titus Howard and Larry Tunsil just gave up on the block and just let the rusher run through. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, the Lions are doing it because they were trying to set up the screen pass, and it worked to perfection. Like, Ben Johnson was out there playing 4D chess, and Bobby was out there playing tic-tac-toe. It was just
with the lights off.
On Twitter, I had put out that he's running circles around Slowick. Like, this is not even in this. They're not even in the same stratosphere as far as play calling ability.
And this team has the personnel to do a lot more offensively than they have been, man.
Oh, most definitely. Even with the injuries, they still have, a pretty solid group of,
I
offensive.
mean, Mechie had a really solid game. Like this is the Mechie that you and I have said for the past couple of years that we want to see, right?
Yeah, that slot guy. He had 5 catches, 74 yards, and his first career touchdown. But the crazy part is all of those numbers, the first half.
The first half. After
0.
that, we completely stopped. We completely stopped using them. Um, Schultz had a couple of like really big first downs, a few tough catches, which is all we're asking for from him. Like we don't need him to be a Kelsey or a Kittle. Like we don't need him to be that. We just need him to be like when all else fails. If we throw the ball at you, just catch it with both hands, bro, and don't let go.
Yeah, they kept trying to run the same out route with Tank Dell. It
just wasn't working. He was completely backed at times.
Yeah, like the Lions, they figured it out in the second. That's how the Lions corner got that pick, because they tried to run it a few times in the first half. It didn't really work too well. I think he maybe had 1 or 2 catches on that out route, but they picked it up and they realized what formation they're in. If Tank Dell's in motion, that means he's probably going to do an out route, and they picked up on it and they shut him down in the second half.
Yeah, no, man. It was offensively, it was just more of the same mistakes. Yeah, the O-line performed a little bit better on the pass protection. On the run side of the things, I guess you got to make sacrifices here and there.
I mean, the play calling did them no favors.
Not at all.
They showed a graphic on the screen yesterday. So in 3rd and 10 situations, CJ Stroud 50 times. Next closest person is Deshaun Watson at 37.
Jeez.
Yeah, it just goes down from there. But everyone's in the 30s and he's at 50. It's almost like they're scheming for them to be in 3rd and long because they run it on 1st down, run it on 2nd down. With the run game's working great, but yesterday it clearly wasn't working. And the Lions, they couldn't really run the ball too well either. But they used the running backs in different situations. They used Gibbs as more of a pass catcher. And then, once the defense is worn out because the offense just could not sustain any drives in the second half, they're bringing the battering ram, David Montgomery, and he was just running it down their throats. And it
was bad.
You can't even blame the defense. Like, they were gassed by the 4th quarter because they were out there a lot.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. Like, even when the defense has a great game, they're eventually gonna just run out of gas with how much they have to be out there.
Yeah, the good teams, they build up a good lead, and then they rely on the running game to eat up the clock and give their defense a break. But the running game wasn't working yesterday, but there's different ways you can have extensions of the run game. Throw it to the running back. Joe Mixon's a pretty decent pass catcher. And he had a couple of good catches in the first half, but they just went away from that in the second half.
And let me ask you this, right? Like yes, a lot of it is on the play calling from Slowick, and how stagnant and lackluster it can be at times. But how much is all of this on D'Amico in general? Because D'Amico is the face of that locker room, right? Of this team. Yes, CJ is the franchise quarterback, but D'Amico is the guy that we brought in for this new era of Texas football. And, going into every single halftime, either winning or in a competitive setting, every single time out of the second half, is like there's nothing on the offensive side of the ball. How much of that falls on Nico?
I would say
on D'Amico, I mean.
Well, so basically D'Amico's in charge of the defense, and you can see the difference.
You can see it. He
fires
brother, does he even talk to Slowick at all? Do they check on each other?
I don't think so. It doesn't look that way, because if you look at the offense, you don't see that same fire. You don't see that same intensity. Like on the defense, those guys are ready to run through walls for each other.
Yeah.
Just look at the offensive line, their body language. They give up on plays. They don't really try to pick, like, if their quarterback's on the ground, they don't really try to pick him up. He's like, guys, what are you doing out there? Like, you see all these linemen in the league, like they go to war for their quarterback. And here, like, they're busy. I saw one guy on Twitter put they're more worried about handbags and hookah than trying to play linemen in the NFL. Like, I spit in my water. That was hilarious when I saw it online. But I mean, they just don't, like, their body language is terrible. Like, they don't seem to, like, there's no accountability there. And I think their mindset's probably like, what are they going to do? Bench me? they're the highest paid players on the team. They're not going to bench them, as we've seen.
Sure.
But I mean, at this point, that's probably the only way you're going to try to get the message. Like they've done a good job of cleaning up the penalties because it was bad at the start.
It was bad at the start of the season. Yeah.
They've done a better job. I mean, yesterday they had a few that were drive killers, honestly. That holding call on Juice Scruggs after that 36-yard catch and run from Mixon, just all that drive.
But what really deflates me is like after the game, D'Amico goes to the podium and he's like, you know, it was a close game. You know, we need to stay more focused. We need to stay competitive. We got to pass the ball better. We got to run the ball better. I'm like, okay. Don't tell us. Tell the players. Tell the players.
You know what it reminds me? It gives me shades of Gary Kubiak.
And do we really want to compare this Texans new era to the Kubiak era?
It's starting to feel that way with some of the repetitiveness and like the just lack of creativity on offense.
Lack of accountability, I would say.
That's too. Because Gary Kubiak, he was loyal to his guys to a fault.
He was like he would never throw them under the bus. He would always take blame, but there would never be any changes.
Yeah, it took some drastic stuff to happen for them to make changes on the defensive side of the ball. Because when Kubiak took over, that a top 10 offense, but they had a bottom 30 defense.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he got rid of his guys and they hired, Wade Phillips to turn that defense around and, the Bulls on parade days. And, from there, they had a very balanced team that had a top 10 offense, a top 3 defense at the time. And if it wasn't for that injury to Matt Schaub, I mean, we've talked to former players and they all agree if Schaub doesn't get injured that year, that's a Super Bowl winning team. Just with the balance they have on offense.
If only.
It's like that Marvel series, What If?
and it's just one of the
thing. It gives me like just some of the stuff that D'Amico says. It just are shades of Kubiak.
And we know he's still new to this head coach position, right? Like it's not like he was going to come in and be
Bill
perfect.
Belichick.
Exactly, Bill Belichick, right? But I don't know, man. I feel like there were a lot of positives. The defense was great. It was unlucky. It was unlucky. And both of those field goals that the Lions hit on the second half, 1 inch to the left, and we're talking a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
But that's what it is, man. It's a game of inches. And like some days you have to be better than what you have been. And the Texans, yes, there were a lot of positives, but kind of like you said, it's like we take one step forward, two steps back. And if this is the way the season is going to finish, because we're going to week 11 now. Like it is what it is at this point.
What was once a promising season full of optimism has really derailed the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, now I'm just like, are we gonna make the playoffs? Question mark.
Well, no, I think because they're gonna win the division easily. They have a 3-game lead right now, unless things nosedive as far as performance goes. They should win the division, but with all the moves they made in the offseason,
but do we want to win the division and just get bounced? Is that what we want? Are we calling that a success? No, we're not.
That's what I was going to roll into. Like winning the division is not enough anymore. Like you did that last year. Like now the next step, it's about progression. Next step, winning a road game in the playoffs, because Kansas City is probably going to get home field. So the road to New Orleans leads to Kansas City.
Yeah, you have to go through Arrowhead, and this team doesn't have what it takes right now. What they're showing doesn't have what it takes. Obviously, the talent is there, but like you said, it seems like the O-line gives up on the play a lot. The offense is stagnant, no creativity. The defense, even when they're playing their absolute best, come third quarter, fourth quarter, they're already gassed. And teams can pick them apart. Like we're talking about Jared Goff, we're talking about Joe Flacco's of the world, Aaron Rodgers, guys who have been in this league for a while and know how to read defenses. Eventually, they're just going to figure it out if you keep giving them chances. And when your offense can't stay on the field because every 3 run plays we're punting.
Yeah, run, punt. Like, what are we doing out there, guys?
What are we doing out there, man?
The way things are looking right now, I can't even say with confidence they win a wild card game at this rate, because hypothetically, let's just say the season ends tomorrow. They're the 4 seed. You know who the 5 seed is? Baltimore.
Yeah. No.
I mean, Baltimore is a beatable team, but the way they're playing right now, like, I don't know, because they're going to get out coached because Bobby Slow doesn't make adjustments in the second half. So they're like, it was just like last season. I had called it out in our group chat during the playoff game. I'm like, man, I haven't seen a single adjustment from the offense. It looks the same as the first half, and Baltimore figured it out and shut them completely down.
It's bad, man. It's bad. We are in such a bad spot right now. I mean, we're in a good spot as a franchise, obviously, but not where we want to be on year 2 of CJ Stroud, especially like you said, with all the offseason moves that we made. Yes, you can't control the injuries or whatever. I don't think Nico, playing would have made that much of a difference, honestly.
That one
you could argue, right? But he's coming, like, it would have been his first game back from an injury. I can never expect anybody to go for 100 yards just coming back from an injury.
We've seen it from the Jamar Chases and the Justin Jeffersons of the world. Came back from multiple weeks, and like, look at Justin Jefferson last season. He missed like 7 games. He still had 1,000 yards.
Yeah, but you're talking about Justin Jefferson.
I mean, the way Collins was playing before the injury,
correct. But even during those games where he was playing, the O-line wasn't as bad as it. Because it felt like the O-line was always an issue, but it became the biggest issue.
It was a glaring problem week 3, because I think that's when teams figured out if you send simple stunts to the middle of the line, they just aren't able to
cave. They'll completely cave. Yeah. We talked about it because I'm sorry.
3.
No, yeah.
So they did a little bit better job with the stunts on Sunday night, but they were still getting through without blitzing a whole lot.
So we talked about all the concerns we have.
Wait, we missed one.
What you got?
If someone can please explain to me why Titus Howard is out there trying to strip sack the quarterback. That has got to be the worst football move I have ever seen in my entire life. And I'm 40 years old. That's got to be the worst move I've ever seen. I've never seen an offensive lineman. And this is 2 weeks in a row he's done this. You basically look like you're about to sack the quarterback. You strip the ball out of his hands to force a fumble. Like, did you have a parlay on yourself?
If anything, it was lucky that the Texans recovered that. Because when I saw that happen, like, I almost flipped the table.
Like, I want any reporter to ask him. So please, walk us through this play. Walk us through the thought process. Like, what were you doing, sir? Like, please, in detail, tell us exactly the thought process behind that, because it
was almost like he forgot that he left the stove open, turned on or whatever. He was like, "Did I lock my car door before I?" Like, he was just.
Did he think CJ was the member of the Detroit Lions? Like, what are we doing, man? Like,
nah, man. That was bad.
That perfectly captures how the game went yesterday. You have your own linemen stripping the ball from you.
Yeah, but I mean, it continues to be the game of 2 halves type of thing, right? It's just we play a great first half against an opponent which honestly we had no business beating on for how well we were playing, and then in the second half it just comes like everything unravels. Like, ball don't lie at the end of the day. And the Lions were the better team going into this game. The Lions left NRG Stadium as the better team, as the better coaching staff. There's
one all around. Play calling for sure, time management, and some of it falls on CJ and Coach D'Amico called him out on it, and I'm okay with that because
and CJ takes responsibility for it, which is good.
Well, because I forgot who said it. It was some commentator that said it, that he looks up to Tom Brady, and like he wants to be like Brady. He wants to be coached like Brady was coached. Like, Bill Belichick didn't pull any punches when he would critique Brady. No. And Brady's the GOAT, like, and he will still get criticized. Like, no one should get criticism in the NFL. And so I like the fact that he's open to taking that kind of criticism. And, you got to call a spade sometimes. And he played bad. That second interception was 100% on him.
100%
How are we lofting it up? Though a little bit more velocity, easy touchdown. That basically would have sealed the game at that point. But
so we talked about all our concerns. Any positives besides Mechie and the defense? I would say. Was there anything else that stood out to you?
Yes, the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. That's what the offense should look like. So a lot of teams want to run the Shanahan offense, but you got to have the personnel for it. Houston does not have the personnel, in my opinion, for this Shanahan offense or whatever version of that Slowick's trying to run. I think this team is, especially with CJ's skill set, I think they're better suited for a spread offense. Let CJ be the point guard out there. Let him, diagnose the plays, get it out quickly, instead of doing what they've been doing, because the offensive line clearly is not built for those long developing plays. They need to go, whatever those trick plays that they've run the last 2 weeks, please tear that page out of the playbook and throw it away. Like,
what I would love to see more is, like kind of like you're saying, let CJ, read the defense and come out with the plays out there. Like,
let him audible, because they don't let him audible.
What's there for us to lose?
At this point, they need to change something, because it doesn't seem like they're going to make a change at the play calling position, which it is. Like I said, it is what it is at this point. But give your young quarterback a little bit more freedom to audible out of plays, like these wide receiver screens that go for negative yards that Slogan is just enamored with. Like, let's try to reduce.
One of these days it's gonna work. And you all said I'm crazy.
I told you it worked. It looks like 97 tries,
and we only got 4 yards out of it.
No, but like with the Lions, that they had a clear plan on defense to shut down the run,
and it worked.
And they continued to run it. Like, if you're averaging less than like 2 yards per carry, you know what? Maybe we should run the ball a little bit less and try to work the running backs into the passing game. Do some simple slant routes, the Michael Thomas route. Like, come on, like simple slants, quick passes, get the ball quickly, like up-tempo offense.
And with Mechie out there, like, you have the perfect guy for those type of plays.
He's looking like he's going to be a very competent, slot receiver, which he was at Alabama. And, hey, the team needs it right now, especially with Diggs gone for the season. But like that second half, that 2-minute drill at the end of the first half, like that's what the offense should look like. More up tempo, more spread out, because these condensed formations aren't working. Because the offensive line is still, even with the changes, they are still struggling with pass protection.
Correct.
So spread them out. That way you can identify the blitzers, not get caught off guard, and just like I said, let CJ be the point guard out there, because that's what he did at Ohio State. They ran a spread offense out there, and look what he did in college.
So Texans lose again. We are now, 6-4?
Yeah.
6-4 on the season. Next week. No, is it next week?
Yeah, Monday Night Football. They get
when is our bye?
Week 14.
Jesus. Okay.
So they have the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Then after that, they get the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, and then they go on the bye week. And then after the bye week is that murderer's row.
Is the Chiefs, the Baltimore, Miami, and the Titans again, right?
No, so they get Miami first.
Miami.
And they get Kansas City on a short week. Then they get Baltimore on an even shorter week. And then they end the season against the Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee Titans. Okay. So let's focus on Monday Night Football. We got Dallas Cowboys at the Cowboys Stadium. They just came. They just came from getting absolutely manhandled by the Eagles.
I mean, no one was surprised by that. The Eagles,
not at all.
Turn it around, but I mean, Dallas, they were already in free fall before the injury to Dak, and now there is a night and day difference between Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush.
Definitely,
like, even with all of Dak's,
flaws, he's still like
he's still a very competent quarterback.
Competent, that's the word. Yeah.
Putting points on the board. With Cooper Rush, you saw yesterday, that offense, they almost non-existent.
But as we have seen this season, the Texans do love to make competitive games out of what should be, in theory, very winnable games.
Oh yeah, the term is they like to play with their food,
And
and
especially away from home. I don't know what the numbers say, but uh, going to Dallas is never it's never easy for anybody.
especially now that they have Micah Parsons back because he is a
Yeah,
different
he
on
he
defense.
he's a difference maker on that defense.
I have a feeling this is going to be one of those games where it's going to be. I think it's going to be pretty reminiscent of when Houston played against the Jaguars this year at home. Like everyone was, predicting a blowout because Jacksonville was just having a down season across the board at every
Such a bad
position,
start, yeah.
just everywhere. Doug, they were in free fall, and then it was a competitive game, and it shouldn't have been.
It
If you
shouldn't
look at
have
the
been.
teams on paper, I have a feeling this game is going to be very similar, but it shouldn't be. Like this should be your chance. This should be your chance to get that bad taste out of your mouth and put up a statement win.
I feel like we've been saying that all year. We've been saying that all year.
Well, we have
And honestly, we haven't had a statement win this year, right? Like every single game, like you said, have been like a one possession game.
the only one that was a blowout was the against the Patriots, but again, it's you
It was
have
Drake May, the
first
Patriots, yeah.
game.
And
But
even still, the Patriots look kind of good against the Texans.
yeah, they
Drake May in general, like they really moved the ball. But
he was impressive.
we're going against the Cowboys. Um, what? How do you think this game is gonna unravel?
So, on paper,
On
this should be a game that they should easily win by 3 or 4 scores. Like the Cowboys have shown nothing as far as running the ball, and it takes you back to the offseason when Jerry Jones said that they were all in, and they proceed to sign nobody. Like you had literally had Derrick Henry in your backyard. We don't have enough money to sign him, and you ended up having a backfield of Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott,
Olsek, yeah.
and Deuce Vaughn. Those aren't exactly names that inspire, that instill fear in defensive
Yeah,
coordinators.
maybe 5 years ago, but
And the numbers have back it up. They are one of the worst rushing teams in the league. Even when Dak was fully healthy, they still struggled to put up points on the board, especially at home, which is kind of baffling. They played better on the road than they did at home.
So, on paper, the Texans, I would say, the way if the Texans can just stop playing with their food and just put up at least a 30 bomb on the first half, I feel like the Texans walk away with this win. If we're going into halftime 14-14 or even behind, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised with a Dallas victory here. The way the Texans have been playing. And please prove me wrong, Texans. Prove me wrong. Because I said last week that the Lions were just better. And even though they had a pretty hot and cold game yesterday, they still came out as the better team. They still showed out like their coach. We got completely out coached by the Lions. So
I think. I predicted a blowout.
I also predicted a blowout, which I mean, we'll take how competitive it was as a Texans fan, but the expectation has been risen. The bar has been risen for Texans.
Yeah.
For the Texans. So losing a game at home that you were leading going into halftime by 3 possessions?
No, just about. It was 2 possessions. They were up by 16.
16. You cannot let a lead like that slip. That's how you become memes.
Yeah, I mean, good teams find ways to win.
You don't want to become the Atlanta Falcons of the AFC South.
Yesterday, it was they look good losing. Like the uniforms, chef kiss. Like
I don't even want to talk about that because that's all what the media was talking about, and I'm like, oh, okay, are we going to talk about how the offense is completely non-existent after halftime? Are we going to talk about that? Because nobody wants to talk about that.
I mean, it's been a recurring theme since week 1, but I digress.
What are we thinking? So, what are we thinking for the Cowboys, though? Give me a scores prediction.
So I'm gonna try to keep it a little bit optimistic this week. I think just a 99.9% chance Nico Collins plays. I mean, barring any type of setback, he should play.
Yes,
and that fixes a lot of the issues on offense. He's one of the elite playmakers in the league. He's elite.
You're getting your big play guy back.
He stretches the field, not just stretches the field, but he also is great in space. Like he's able to create separation, and he bails your quarterback out on those, third and longs or those short yardage situations. Gives you another red zone threat. I'll be honest. I was expecting a little bit more from Tank Dell in Nico's absence. We just didn't really see a whole lot of it,
especially with Diggs out too. Like you would think that it would be Dell's time to shine, but I feel like other wide receivers have stepped up more.
Yeah, Mechie's has stepped up. Hutchinson made a couple key catches, and again, I don't know if it's a lack of him getting separation because there were times he was open, but it's just
he just wasn't getting the ball.
And I
think that's down to play calling.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to play calling because he's a big red zone threat, which is crazy to say because he's the smallest guy on the field by a lot.
A long shot, yeah.
He's 5'10", 168 on a good day. But at the University of Houston, like he was their red zone threat because he was just able to create that separation in the red zone. And a lot of that comes down to the play calling because they were just not, scheming him open in the red zone.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I feel like with Nico coming back, Nico was basically what was hiding how bad the offensive line was in the first few weeks because he was always there to make the big play, and CJ knew how to get him the ball on a silver platter with, almost no time between snapping the ball. So, and with how much Dallas has struggled to put up points, yes, they're getting Micah Parsons back, but I still think that the Texans have just enough, or at least should have just enough to beat on the Cowboys. So I'm not going to go full blowout. I think it's going to be more competitive than that, but I think it's going to be low scoring nonetheless. A lot of field goals, I predict. So I'm going to go with 23-17.
No, I'm gonna go the opposite. I think with Nico back, the offense starts to hum a little bit better, and I think we see a more complete performance from the offensive group this game. I'm gonna go 38.
Jesus.
38-9.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, hopefully they can put him away early and just lean on Joe Mixon in the second half, so you don't have to leave the game in Bobby Slowick's hand because. As we've seen, and it's come from the horse's mouth itself. He does not make adjustments.
He does not. But we will catch you guys. This is a Monday Night Football game, so we will catch you guys next week. This episode is coming out tomorrow, Tuesday, the 12th, and then next episodes will probably come out because are we gonna record it while the game is going on? Probably not, right?
No.
So next week might be a little bit later. Maybe on Wednesday will come out. But thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please show my boy Rios some love on Twitter. He's real fun when he's not being a complete menace. And maybe we'll get Carlos here next week again. That's 2 weeks for him. He's been absent. 3 strikes. He's 3 strikes, and you owe me a smoothie.
We designated him for assignment.
He's on waivers. But like I said, thank you guys for watching. Anything before we go, Rios?
No, I'll just make sure you check us out every week. Check out our Esquina as well. Check out our boys at Full Steam Ahead. Great baseball content. There's no baseball on right now, but they will definitely keep you up to date with a lot of the impending free agency moves and guys, becoming available. And hey, we'll see.
The offseason is well underway for Astros baseball. But we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for watching, and peace.